Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be checking out Blazing Vortex. We're going to be doing a set review, going over some of the best cards that you want to be pulling out of here, as well as going over the other good cards that might not be the most money value, but they are still kind of cool cards, and to kind of just check out what is actually in this set. So first off, what is the chase card of the set? That is P.O of Prosperity, and specifically the prismatic rares, as that's the highest value card in the entirety of the set. But there are some other cards to go ahead and highlight. Some newer archetypes are going to be out over here in Blazing Vortex. Now, keep in mind that everything we mentioned over here is at the time of me making this video, which is just one day after the release here in the TCG. So there are some other archetypes coming out. We have the S Forces finally available to kind of play the deck here. On top of that, we've also got War Rocks, and we've got the Spriggans, which is a really interesting, like kind of like a battleship mechanic where you're gonna make the card kind of go away and then it comes back and then it attacks you. It's a cool, interesting mechanic with attaching things from the graveyard. There's also the new Armed Dragon Thunder level variants. But as far as any of these in the archetype, for the set review, is there anything in here that really looks super good that's going to be tier 1, the next best deck? As of right now, I would say it's kind of hard to suggest any of these to be one of the best, but there are some interesting cards like Underdog in the set as well. But just going over the prices, because I think that's the main thing people really want to know with the Blazing Vortex as far as the review goes. Is there anything really good in here? If you want to be investing into Blazing Vortex, is it a good investment? Pretty much. If you're not pulling a P.O of Prosperity, which is the only card that is going to be over $60 in value. Again, this is at the moment of me making this video. Keep in mind, any Starlight Rare, yes, that's going to be absolutely amazing. Those are always going to be like $100+, right? But at the same time, if you're not pulling those Starlight Rares, is there anything else good here? Because again, in any set in Yu-Gi-Oh going forward, as long as there are Starlight Rares, that's like an easy way to go plus. But pretty much P.O of Prosperity, if you don't pull it, it's going to be very hard to go kind of plus on here in terms of your $60 value. There are a lot of cards in here that are still okay cards, but again, if we're just talking for value, if you don't pull P.O of Prosperity, you're really looking at going pretty minus. Even if you get Underworld Goddess, you can maybe get another like 20-ish in value. Keep in mind, again, all of these cards are at the date right here, one day after release. So looking at everything in the set, like I'm going to go ahead and highlight things. Obviously, P.O of Prosperity, one of the best cards in the set. It's hovering around 85-ish dollars. Again, you know, things can fluctuate, go up and down, but it's the only card in the entire set that's not Starlight that could potentially hit like $100 mark as a good card to go ahead and select. Now, on top of that, there are still some other great cards in the set that a lot of people might be thinking about, including in some of their extra decks or in some of their mains or sides, and I kind of want to go over some of those cards. So, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World is a Link 5 monster. I'll go over their effects kind of really fast here, but basically, it's a monster that you can use one of your opponent's monsters as link material to summon the card. That's the big deal with it. And then on top of that, you get to negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls, and then the summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects unless they specifically target this card, which is kind of a downside. It also has another effect where once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that specials of monsters from the graveyard, you get to negate the activation. Not destroy the card, unfortunately, but that it could matter at the end of the day. But pretty much what it comes down to is if you keep on summoning a bunch of smaller monsters and your opponent like negates their effect to do something but doesn't destroy the monsters, you could potentially use all those monsters plus one of their monster to make something very powerful. So I like it for that reason. It could be, again, depending on the deck that you play, you could maybe include this card in the extra deck. It's about $30-ish right now. Next up, the Heavenly Zephyr Miradora. This is another card that I think a lot of people will be on the lookout for. It has some potential for sure. So this is another secret rare. It's hovering about $15 right now, but it's a level 7 Wind Dragon effect. It's got 2,000 attack, 2,600 defense. This video, I'm not going to go over all the effects, but basically, the effect cannot be stopped by this card. And then if your opponent special summons a monster with 2,000 or more from the extra deck, except during the damage type, you special it, you get to negate the effect of a face-up opponent's monster. Now, it doesn't have to be that specific monster. It's just face-up monster that was special from the extra deck. So you can still use it maybe later down the line, but primarily the idea is like your opponent goes first or whatever the case may be. You know, you can, if you draw it later in the game, yeah, you could potentially get this card out, stop a monster effect from going off, and then you have like an okay amount of stats. But I think a lot of people have they want to like link crazy off, you know, Phantasme is still an excellent card as well. But it's just a little bit more conditional, as some matchups you simply won't be able to use it because one, they might not even really utilize the extra deck. Maybe like Dinos, that's an archetype that can completely play without the extra deck, and then at that point it's a pretty hard brick. But because it's a Dragon Wind, there is some synergy for like the Wind Witches, and as well as, let's say, the Dragoonies that you can just like discard, right? But a good card nonetheless. There's also Eldritch the Mad Golden Lord, which is a fusion monster for some of the people that are interested in like Eldritch zombies or anything playing Zombie World, or if you just want to side deck, you know, Zombie World, it could be a good option. Zombie World is always one of those cards where a lot of people side deck. It can absolutely obliterate a deck by just having it, and then if you are already playing Super Poly and you just don't need every card in your extra deck, hey, this could be an excellent card, as a lot of people are playing Prosperity. There's lots of other cards that will just get rid of cards that are in your extra deck, and if you have room, I guess you can throw it in there. It's not a really expensive card, it's like $6. Pretty much from here on out, none of the cards are actually really worth anything after like, there's also Armed Dragon, Thunder level 10, which I sorted it over here by high to low, but keep in mind, things can change as the day goes on by a couple dollars. But pretty much after like the Heavenly Zephyr, everything is pretty much $10 or under, which in my personal opinion is not that great in terms of like, if you want to buy cases of these to go ahead and try to make a profit on, I would say that this might not be the best set for you, but there are still good cards, and I want to go over those other great cards in the set. But as far as all the Armed Dragon stuff, again, it's more so for the Yu-Gi-Oh fans than I would say for like the players that's looking to build the best Yu-Gi-Oh deck. But I still want to cover some of the other cool cards in this set. In fact, we just dropped some gameplay of a lot of these, and I'll be linking in the pinned comment in case any of you guys are like, I want to build this deck, is it any good? I want to see that gameplay. I got you with a bunch of the videos. We got the new Dream Mirrors, which they're in here, the new Warrock Archetype, which is a little bit lackluster, I'm going to be honest. There's also the Araya deck that uses one of the newer cards, Azurune, but again, I'll pin all those down below. But there is a really cool combo with Greater Polymerization and the Trinity combo, and I was using the new Lunar Book of Moon, which is not in the set, by the way. I wish it was. But this card is really good. It just lets you go ahead and Trinity and attack multiple different times, and on top of that is piercing. It's pretty cool. So this is another like great card. It can be used in a lot of different decks, but I personally really like it in Heroes, especially since Liquid Solid Man like combos. You can definitely go Super Plus with Greater Polymerization. So don't sleep on this card. Technically other decks can use it too, but that's the deck that I really liked with it. If you guys are interested in Skull Servants, this is a really awesome card. Most of these cards that I'm going to be covering now are like under $1, but there's still some of the best cards in the set that I wanted to go ahead and highlight. But it's a pretty simple effect over here. Its name becomes Skull Servant, and it does offer some protection. You can discard this card if a level 3 or lower zombie would be destroyed battle by card effect. So I really also wish it made it so they couldn't target it. There's also Lady in White that kind of helps you protect it. But if it's under the graveyard, you get to add 2 monsters with different names from your deck to your hand that are either Skull Servant or List Skull Servant. So it's a really, really good card for that archetype. Anyways, there's also Raging Storm Dragon Balefort, which is another Wind Dragon. It's only like a 7-cent card, but it's still pretty cool. So you can ritual summon this card with the Breath of Acclamation, but when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can discard the card, negate the attack, then negate that monster's effect. But also, as a quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and return both that monster and this to the hand, so you get to bounce it back, and then you get to let a ritual summon. If any of the ritual monsters, would get some type of proc effect, you could potentially use it, and since it is a lot 9, there is actually a good rank 9 that we'll talk about. There's also Psychic Eraser Laser. This card is actually quite expensive for just a super in the set. What it does is it sends monsters your opponent controls that was special from the extra deck. Remember, it's send, not destroy, so it does have some advantages over other cards. But then your opponent gains life points equal to the original attack or defense of the monster, whichever is higher. You can only activate 1 per turn, so there's some downside with it. But you could technically run this in Reverse Burn because it does heal it, so I think that's kind of cool. But Reverse Burn hasn't really been seeing any play, but I just thought it was kind of a cool card to highlight. Again, it sends. Also for machines, there is the Machina Unclass Pair. This card is actually pretty cool. So if this card is added, so you can search it out because Machina card, pretty easy to do. You can go ahead and slam it down, special summon it. You can only go for machine monsters for the rest of the turn, but if it's normal or special, you get to send a Machina monster from your deck to the graveyard. That adds consistency with the Citadel, the Machina Kernel Citadel. excellent card for that archetype, but I haven't really seen that one go off, but I'll just mention some of the like other highlights in here. There's also some support for the Virtual World Gate, which is another special summon. It also changes a card's battle position, but it's a cheap card, but nonetheless it's a good other target for the Virtual Worlds. There's also support for the Ancient Warriors. Lu Feng, aka Lu Bu, is actually really good. He's able to go ahead and have this awesome once per turn during the main phase quick effect. You can pop up face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest attack, and if it's tied, it's your choice. And he has pretty decent stats, and it must be special from your hand by controlling the highest attack Ancient Warriors monsters on the field. It's kind of cool. Again, it's just more support for the archetype. The archetype, do I think it's going to be tier 1 with this? No. But this card is absolutely amazing for that deck. It definitely helps him out quite a bit. There's also Sacred Tree Beast, Hyperion. So obviously VFD is like the go-to rank 9 that people do make, but this card is still pretty awesome as you're going to have at least 2 monsters equipped to it, unless you use like a trap card or something. But anyways, during your turn, when you activate a card effect, quick effect, you can target 1 card of the same type, monster, spell, trap, in your graveyard, and you get to attach it to its material. And then during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you attach 1 of the same type, monster, spell, trap, negate the activation and destroy it. I think most people will want to go for VFD, but if there's certain times, or if VFD gets hit on the next list, this is still a pretty decent card. Its stats are okay, and it has the ability to, again, at least negate monsters, because to make it, you need 2 level 9s, unless you're using some like weird combination of like a trap monster. But for the most part, it's still a pretty decent card, and I think it has some potential definitely in the game if VFD goes away. But next up, there's also some other Tri-Brigade support in here. I just want to like mention it. There's also more Virtual World stuff, but I already mentioned like the trap card earlier. There's a new Ojama in here. It could be used for some type of troll plays where you're able to go ahead and if this card is discarded, so if it's sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can activate its effect. Both players draw a card, then discard. And if you discard an Ojama card, you get to choose one of your opponent's unused monster zone, and that zone can't be used until the end of your opponent's turn. So it's a little bit harder to set up because you'll have to let your opponent cycle through cards, and that's not usually the greatest thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! To let your opponent choose what they want to get rid of. But I mean, maybe if you can lock them out completely for troll purposes, I always think about that as a content creator. But I know a lot of people really just love Ojamas in general. It's not like the worst of decks. There's also new Fables in here, although I will probably say Fables are not going to be super OP or anything. There's some support for Dream Mirrors as well, but again, that archetype is just not really taking off. There's even like a new Fabled Synchro, but like it's just outclassed with this day and age in Yu-Gi-Oh! So what this card does is if it's special summoned, which is any way that it's summoned, so keep in mind that you can technically bring this card back, but your opponent can discard 1 card to negate the effect. Otherwise, you can draw 2 and discard 1. It's a pretty good effect using it as a stepping stone to make other things than bringing it back later down the line to pop off. But again, Fabled is a very like all-in turn 1 deck, I would say, and going second with Fabled is an absolute nightmare already. In the fact that like their newer support doesn't have some type of like negation of like preventing your opponent from like stopping your plays, because again, they're primarily like an all monster mash heavy deck, and you try to invest in a big board. So if you go second, it's relatively rough, I would say. I mean, you could run other cards like droplets, but at the end of the day, I still think that Fabled, unfortunately, with the newer support, it's not that insane. There's also a really cheesy card for those guys like interesting things. Archfiend's Staff of Despair is also in here, which makes it so you can equip it to a monster, and you make all your opponent's monsters controls lose attack equal to half of the equipped monster's attack. So if you have something with a large attack like Superconductor Tyranno, slam this on it, your opponent loses a bunch of stats, and then you just attack and do everything. Even though Superconductor Tyranno can get over everything by putting it face down, you actually don't want to do that with this effect. You can maybe do some OTK plays with that, and then if it's sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you can pay 1,000. It's mostly for nostalgia. Like, you know, Axe of Despair is a very nostalgic Yu-Gi-Oh card for a lot of players, and when they hyped this card up, and they didn't even show off the effect, and I was excited about it. But unfortunately, once they revealed the effect, I was like, it's like, again, mediocre. The fact that you can pay 1,000 maybe has some interesting interaction. If this effect wasn't once per turn, you could probably do something weird with some equip plays for certain weird, again, win conditions. But a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards these days is not once per turn. But that's going to pretty much highlight the best cards. And again, if you guys want to see gameplay of any of the newer things, definitely check the pinned comment. If you want to see War Rocks or any of those newer archetypes that are out, I covered a bunch of them and I'll link them down below. But if there's any other great cards you guys felt like I missed out on, let me know in the comment section below. But pretty much in terms of like a set review to kind of go ahead and round off this video, I would say if you're looking at prosperity, most people will probably want to play multiples of these. I would probably just invest into the singles for this set if I was to try to get some cards out of the set. Because again, most of these archetypes, even though there are several newer archetypes coming out into the game, I would say that most of these cards are going to be dropping, I would say, in price relatively soon, as I just don't see Warrocks doing very like hot. There's also the Live Twin, but most of those things are very cheap. The Armed Dragon stuff is not what I would consider S tier in terms of the metagame, but pretty much as far as it goes, a lot of these cards are just going to be like in the dollar zone. This card's pretty cool though. Statue Azurine has like a negate effect. Again, just watch the video if you guys want to see like what the heck these do. As I don't want to go over every single effect, but you can see the prices of these cards pretty much. If it's not some of the cards I mentioned earlier on, it's basically going to be under $1, which is good for any of you guys that are interested in building or picking up a couple cards, like even like the Lu Fang card. It's only 17 cents and it's a super rare, so you can pick 3 of those up, spend a couple dollars, finish maybe your mirror deck or stuff like that. I would say that the set overall is, in terms of a review, I was asking you guys in the Yu-Gi-Oh community when I was streaming, like, what do you guys give this set out of a 10? I would say this set is just not personally for me. I would look out for more other things. Some of you guys are giving it 3 and 4s out of 10. I'd say that that's about on point. There are some Yu-Gi-Oh sets where it's like pull or bust, like pull that one card, and this one card is Pot of Disparity. If you don't get this card, you're not looking to plus. Unless you, of course, get any Starlight variant of any of the cards. It's just, those are very rare, by the way. But that's my thoughts on this set. You guys can let me know yours down below. I didn't really feel like there was a chase card for every single deck to play. Like, you know, multiple copies of. There's no Ash Blossom or like Valor in this where like every deck wants it. This card is still pretty good. Again, a little bit conditional, but that's my thoughts. Anyways, that's going to go wrap things up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it. If you guys are new here and you want to see more new Yu-Gi-Oh set reviews, hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and you'll definitely see more. But that's my thoughts. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.